Hello and welcome my friends to The Flying Kick. I am Savino and today I bring you the review of Pulling No Punches, a beaten up from the guys at Brain Dead Broccoli that tells the story of four girls that are fed up with people not complying with some safety measures to prevent a global pandemic and decide to take the matters to their hands, or gloves in this case, and stop those people to spread the disease even further. But is the game good enough to survive or is it plagued with problems? Let's find out right now. During a fictional global pandemic in a fictional country curiously similar to Brazil, four girls are tired of people not complying with the safety measures, including the president of that same country, and decided to take the matter in their hands, punching each and every one that's not cooperating with the health authorities. The story is short and presented in a small cutscenes that will pop up between the levels. There's nothing much to the story here actually, and as usual with beaten ups, you can skip it without losing anything important. The story is also told in the stages with the backgrounds where bars, church, signs and posters tells a lot of what is happening in that country, but since it's all in Portuguese, it unfortunately will not work on those who do not speak the language. There's a lot of humor in the game that will not make sense to the foreign player base, unless they know details of Brazilian politics and the current situation, which, while will not ruin the story, it may leave the player wondering if something was supposed to be funny or not. Following a recent trend in beaten ups, the developers of the game have chosen a hand-drawn approach to the graphics and it works very well here. The characters and the backgrounds look great, with lots of details on the girls and the places you visit. Trash on the streets, graffiti everywhere, it gives you a sense of a living place inhabited by people who do not care too much with the look of their town. The four girls also looks great. They have that gritty look from cartoons like Ren and Stimpy, with accentuated details and strong facial expression. It's a very interesting art style because it gives the characters and the world for that matter a lot of texture that you don't see very often. They look and move just like a cartoon and you can't shake this feeling while you play thanks to the fluidity of the animation, which is excellent here. Your characters, your enemies, the bosses, all moves and acts with a lot of personality, and you can see the devs put a lot of effort and passion on each one of the frames. The world is also very vivid and beautiful. The amount of detail you get from each level is outstanding, with some very good representation of what a city in Brazil would look like. Actually, I can confirm that they captured the streets of Brazil pretty well. The dirtiness of the streets, the walls covered with graffiti, it's always a staple of this country and I really enjoyed seeing it represented in a game. Some of the levels are more detailed than others, like the third level, which lacks a bit of detail on the background showing green hills on the horizon that are just a green patch without anything to give it some life. This does not affect the game in any way, but after seeing so much care and detail in some levels, this one really stood out by the lack of it. Pulling No Punches also has an incredible lighting. Some of the levels will make your jaw drop, so good is the way they treated the light. It's very similar to what they did in Streets of Rage 4, and it makes the game look even better and richer, accentuating the details even more and giving to some levels a very good atmosphere. In general, Brain Dead Broccoli made an outstanding job with the graphics, and while I understand the style isn't for everybody, no one can deny the love, care and dedication they put into this game. To accompany such good art style, the devs came up with a very interesting OST. The tracks have a lot of Brazilian influence, especially Brazilian funk, some rock and even classical influences. The devs have chosen a chiptune style for the game, with electronic notes taking hold of the composition and sounding like the game of the good old times. All levels have more than one track, since they are divided in areas, so each area will have their own tune, which is pretty good to hear in a game like this, although the transition from one to another can be a little rough sometimes. Some of the tracks are very good, especially in the second stage where some classical tunes are very well made and give you an ominous sensation. One thing I need to note here is, While the OST is pretty good, it may not be exactly suited to a beat'em up. They work in conjunction with the level you are in, giving you a feeling of the place you are passing through, but they are not tracks that will pump you up to beat some baddies like Go Straight or The City Slums. The sound effects are also on point, with throws, punches, kicks have that oomph that will satisfy most of the players with each strike. When you defeat an enemy, you will listen to a very satisfying splosh sound, and when you clear a scene, a ding sound will let you know you can go ahead. It may seem simple when you read about it, but it works so well that will become a second nature for you after the first few moments playing it. The game has no voiceovers whatsoever, except for one or another laugh from a boss, but this is not a problem here. As I said, the sound effects work so well that you won't miss a scream or two from your enemies. Pulling No Punches offers you 4 characters that are pretty interesting to play with, and although they have basically the same set of moves, their range, speed, strength are varied enough to make each one unique to play. Interesting enough, here you don't have your all-around character with all stats set to medium. All characters have their stats all over the place, making them a unique cast and a very nice surprise. You have Laura, that is the second strong character in the game with very good agility but a small reach. Nina, that's not so strong or agile but have a great reach. Olga, who is extremely agile but lacks in reach and strength, and finally Lola the Grappler, who is extremely strong with a great reach and poor agility. The gameplay is a mix of beaten up with a very light RPG mechanics. You start the game in a world map, just like Scott Pilgrim, and can interact with some NPCs and buy some items that can boost your stats with the money you earn defeating enemies. Each character starts with a basic set of moves that you will expand throughout your gameplay, finding pieces of books scattered through the levels. You will start with your typical weak punch, strong punch, jump, block, a dash and a grab move that works as a shoulder throw. Your character also has a special bar that fills when you hit or get hit by your enemies. The basic stuff that, thankfully, are the basis for a game like this today instead of just drowning your life as it used to be. This set of moves will be expanded to a more complex set with dodge, slide, throws and aerial attacks. It all works very well with a good responsive controls and easy to pull moves. Unfortunately, you won't be using most of these moves most of the time. While everything so far is pretty solid and an amazing achievement for a small team in their first try, the combat is extremely flawed and plagued with mistakes that are common to a lot of games in the same situation. You can easily defeat any regular enemy spamming with only a single move. It could be your slide, your strong attack, your flying kicks. Aside from your weak attack, all attacks will drop your enemy on the first hit, and they don't have any iframe window or comeback move to protect themselves. Some enemies can avoid some of your attacks, but it won't be long until you find one that can put them to sleep with 2 or 3 hits. The same, or even worse, can be said about the bosses. They are huge, very well done, but they are extremely boring to fight. First of all, they almost never can be knocked down. They have an exhausted animation after taking a lot of hits, but most of the time your combos will be useless against them. Yes, you will take some energy from them, but soon they will counter and your options will be dodge and repeat or block and repeat. The bosses also don't have any variety in their attacks. They will often use 1 or 2 moves that will certainly knock you down if they hit you, and that's it. There is, unfortunately, no real combat here, just an exhaustive repetition of moves until you beat the boss. This is all a shame, because the game has a very good basis. The control is solid, the characters are extremely interesting and different from each other, and the enemies, even though they're just a few, have some interesting mechanics and attacks that could have opened opportunities for a lot of good fights if the combat was a little more fleshed out. Extended combos, aerial combats, on-the-ground attack, juggles, cancels, all of these are missing in this game, which hinders the combat due after some time. Which brings us to another problem with the game: it's extremely short. Here you will have only 4 levels and the game is over. Not that you need 200 levels to make a good game, not at all. The best beaten ups are usually the ones you can beat under an hour, but here you end up feeling that something is missing. This ends up making the world map pointless and just a waste of time because there's no alternate path and, as far as I know, no secrets to uncover, just some shops to buy consumables that could have been displayed between each level instead. Your characters also suffer from the same lack of iframes as your enemies, so be prepared to have your throws interrupted and, in crowded scenes, be trapped by enemies without a chance to recover. The AI also could use some tweaks. It is there, it works, but sometimes you will see enemies stopping on their tracks for no reason and stay there just waiting for you to beat them. Others will hit you and walk away, apparently knowing that you don't have any iframes, and he will give you a chance to recover. There is, in the end, no urgency in the combat, no spectacle, just mindless and boring repetition of one move to rule them all. While everything seems right at first glance, with great graphics, animation, good soundtrack and responsive controls, after a while we start to notice something wrong with the game. The lack of variety in the combat, the one-move strategy that you can use throughout the whole game, and uninspired boss battles soon become evident and make the game a hard one to recommend to new and old fans of the genre. The game is not lost. There are a lot of good things to work with here if the developers really want to make this game great. We have seen this before with other games and how an update can transform a beat'em up from a boring experience to an amazing game that figures among the best these days in less than a year. Gathering an experienced test group, getting advice from some pro players would do wonders to this game, since the basis for something good is already here. Otherwise, this game will be remembered for nothing but its humor, and will soon be forgotten by those who really appreciate a good combat above anything else. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. There's more to come this week, so keep an eye here on the channel. I hope you guys have a good day, and remember, keep it up.